Well, Max, I mean, you got the back-to-back, wins. They blowing out teams now. You got Tatum and Brown passing Deuce back and
Whoa,
forth,
whoa, wait a
smiling
minute.
and
Just wait. Let
hugging.
me ask you this:
What does
weren't
this
you
mean?
supposed to? Weren't you supposed to blow out
Hold
Sacramento?
on, but you didn't let me finish. You see, you didn't even hear my question though. I'm talking about seeing Tatum and Brown hugging with Deuce and all this. We've never seen this before, Max. Like, is this significant or what? Are these two? You think these two have reached a point of understanding, or they've actually of a cohesive unit now? Are they
What
chummy?
I like
They
about
best
all
friends
this,
now? They BFF?
what I like about all this, Josue, is they have addressed it, and that's the biggest thing. For the longest time, it's like Brown doesn't like Tatum, Tatum doesn't like Brown, and you never heard them talk about it. Then all of a sudden, you heard Tatum come out and say, "Look, me and Jaylen like each other, and we root for each other." And since then, it seems like they have cleared the air of people talking about one guy against the other. I mean,
Yeah.
the question I wanted to ask you was Jaylen Brown during Martin Luther King's Day,
Oh, that's
and
right. We had to
the
talk about this.
celebration,
Yeah,
how
we had
he
to talk
stood
about this.
out there and he said Martin Luther King was a great man, and everybody in Boston went, "Yay!" And then 2 seconds later, he said Boston has to work on this for being what a racist city.
They got quiet real quick. Yeah,
Whoa! And
yeah.
a couple of boos came out of there.
You see, you heard that, right? I feel like people
I
are
didn't
talking
hear
about
it.
that.
People told me about it because I had my headphones on,
I
but
heard
I
it.
heard people tell me there was a couple of boos out of there.
Yeah, someone's video, one of the videos that was one of the one that went viral. You can clearly hear some boos. You can hear it go down, and then some boos saying like they don't agree. Yeah,
Man. And
terrible.
that to me was that's big for an athlete in his own city.
Yeah,
That is
yeah, it is.
that takes the big onions for you to come out. You got to have a big paycheck behind you to do something like that.
Yeah.
To say that your city has a problem with racism. But he
Hmm.
backed it up by saying he put points in it about saying that this
It's
city
everywhere
is
else
the
too.
lowest,
Yeah.
all the things he talked about, the lowest employment, the lowest amount of people of color who don't have homes, they have to
Hmm.
rent their salaries. So he had statistics which backed it up, and that to me was pretty powerful on his point.
It's huge. It's huge, Max. I love that he said that and he had the stats. And of course, he's obviously been doing his homework. And I think that he's probably triggered people who may not come forward and say it, but maybe they're doing their own homework, and doing
That was the big thing. Yeah, I
that's the
think
best
that's
thing you could
true.
do, right? You spark that.
Doing
You spark that
your
idea,
homework,
right?
doing your homework, and talking about the issue and having some facts to back it up.
Right.
That was pretty big, and that was pretty ballsy for
I
him.
love
And
that.
I was surprised, but I was also proud
Yeah.
of the fact that he had those stats and was able to rattle that stuff off in a way that people couldn't deny it. You
Yeah.
you couldn't go away from it. But I've
That's
always
good.
said this, and I'll say this again: Boston does not have a monopoly on racism. And racism is alive and well all over,
Yeah.
but Boston isn't the prominent place that has it more than any other city here in America. That's what I say
Yeah.
towards him or anybody else who want to listen.
I thought Jalen crushed it. I really did. I just the only one thing I had, the only one request I had, and we've talked about this on this podcast plenty of time, is I want people to remember, or at least the younger kids to know how significant this Celtics franchise was in terms of changing things from the NBA standpoint, in terms of breaking the color barrier. Red Auerbach didn't see they didn't care about which how many white players he was going to start. He was the first one to start an entire starting five of players that were all black. And that obviously pushed things forward, maybe decades before it would have. That was in the 50s, right, Max? So Bill Russell, that says it there. For him to draft someone like Bill Russell and for him to win all those titles as a player and as a coach and so on and so forth. I'm not sure that happens in Boston if it isn't for Red Auerbach. So I just want
Yeah,
that narrative to get out there and be flowing. Nowadays from a national standpoint, not just around Boston, but of course here in Boston, and for Celtics fans to remember that and know that.
well, I'll ask you a question then. why was I linked to that I was on a white team?
Oh, because not everyone connected with the Celtics in these parts, right? At least where I grew up, the OGs that I knew, they always used to tell me, "Why do you love the Celtics so much, man?" When I grew up, I loved the Lakers because that was, the Celtics were a white team, and the Celtics fans were
Wait
racist.
a minute, wait a
You know?
minute. They were a white team. Was I white? Was
You're
Chief?
not. No, you're not.
Was Nate Archibald? Was Dennis
Robert Parrish.
Johnson? Gerald
No,
Henderson? ML
no.
Carr? I mean, I don't quite understand that. And I mean, so I'm asking you as a person who linked us and said, "Hey, you were a Laker fan because they were a black team and we were a white team."
I didn't say that. I'm the one that got crap for being a Celtics fan growing up for liking the
Okay.
Celtics. They weren't even good when I was growing up. So, I'm talking about the older kids, the ones that were, 8, 7, whatever years older than me. And they would say, yeah, we because of Larry, and it was Larry versus Magic, they sided with Magic, because some people had to run home from school to, because they had to avoid a group of white kids that wanted to beat them up for no reason. Like, I would hear these stories, Max, and I think I can't help but connect with people from my neighborhood that were more Lakers fans than they were Celtics fans. I still think to this day they feel that way. They won't like the Celtics. It's just something about them because of what what it was like growing up in Boston. Yeah.
And that, but even you think about it now, when Paul Pierce was there, and Kevin Garnett, and Ray Allen, and Rondo, and Perk, was it still viewed as a white team?
No.
No? Seriously?
Yeah.
Okay, well, a lot of people still would say stuff about
No,
the Celtics.
the conversation changed to the city because that conversation that was always there. That talk was always there.
So
Boston's
the only time
a racist city.
it was viewed that way was when I was on the team with Larry Bird and Kevin McHale, or maybe Dave Cowens and John Havlicek.
Max, I think it had less to do with you. It was just because of how big the Magic versus Larry feud was. So people in Boston that were, the majority of black people in Boston sided with Magic.
Well, I heard a lot of people who were, even when Magic did the Larry Bird or the Celtic video, a lot of Magic came out and said, "Hey, there's a lot of people working in those hotels, people of color. So I hope you beat them damn white boys today."
I like that.
So I don't know where that came from or what it was about, but truly that was one of the things that happened.
Yeah. I mean, hey, listen, Max. I mean, the people I'm talking about, they were kids when they were, had those feelings or those emotions. But I mean, that's just the way it was around here. But again, that's why I want that narrative to get out there. I would love for that to be reminded for, NBA fans and Celtics fans, of course, alike, to remember how historic, how change, the way Red Auerbach changed everything.
He did. He changed the dynamics of the game. I mean, by getting Chuck Cooper was the first black player in the NBA. And then after Chuck Cooper, you think about he went out and traded for a good white player to get Bill Russell, who changed the whole way the game was played and won more championships than anybody else. And then to start 5 black men during that particular time, it was unheard of.
Right.
They always said the Celtics back during the 60s and the time when they were winning championships, they couldn't field the Boston Garden. The Bruins could, but the Celtics couldn't.
Yeah.
Because people did not like the color barrier, which had been broken here in Boston.
But then what happens though, Max? I think you said it before. I think it's one of your quotes. Winning solves everything, right? And all of a sudden, everyone's like, "Hey, man, this team's winning. Let's go check them out."
But even when they won championships, it was still hard for them to sell out. That's just the fact that when the Celtics were winning championships and the Bruins weren't winning championships, the Celtics could not sell out the Boston Garden.
Yeah.
And the Bruins could. So what was that about?
What do you think?
That's why I asked you. You're not going to dodge this one, okay? That's why I asked you.
Ticket prices?
Prices? What the hell are you talking about? Ticket prices? Just say, what are we doing? We playing dodgeball here? Is Is that what you're doing now? Is that called dodgeball?
Wait, well, what era are we talking about? Are you talking about the 80s, Max? Like, I find that hard
No,
to
I'm
believe.
talking about during the '60s. That
Oh,
they
all right.
when the Celtics won 8 championships in a row, they
Yeah,
could not sell out the Boston Garden on many occasions.
yeah. Right after the color barrier was broke. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Because not everyone agreed with it, Max. Of course,
Okay.
it's the thing. But at the end of the day, I mean, the popularity of the sport itself, along with the fact that Celtics were winning. I mean, what do you think changed over the years? You think people just adapted?
Or maybe they just adapted. I think the popularity of the game changed. The NBA became more popular. When you think about Larry and Magic playing against each other, that was one of the things that changed the prices and the salaries for many players.
Right.
Was the way the game just shot up, and then you always have a next generation to come in. After you had Larry and you had Magic, and then the Isaiahs of the world. But then you went from that to Vince Carter. Then you could think about Philadelphia with Julius Erving. The Knicks became popular with Patrick Ewing.
I got you.
The game
Yeah.
just took a whole nother turn when you think of that. And then finally it got to Michael Jordan, and he elevated to a place that he was the most popular athlete in the world. He happened to be a basketball player. And because he was this basketball player, he was able to lift the sport to another level.
You said after the color barrier. All right, gotcha. No, you threw me off when you were like, even when they started winning championship. I'm thinking 70s to into the 80s, but I got you now.
Yeah. Nope. That was during the time they won the 8 championships, and Bill Russell was given the keys, I think, to Reading, Massachusetts. He was at some event and came home, and somebody took a shit in his bed. That was just broke in his house to do that. How foul do you have to be? How foul do you have to be as a person? How disgusting do you have to be as a person to even think about something like that?
Never mind, do it, right?
Yeah.
And the another thing about Boston, see, now you got to tell me talking all negative, but you bring up Bill Russell and that incident. Why did it take so long for him to get that statue? Like, he got it like 10 years ago, Max. Like, this wasn't even like I shouldn't have been born. I shouldn't have been born yet when he got the damn statue. Why did I know about it?
I talked about this very.
Man.
I know I talked about this very thing.
It's
For
insane.
many years when I was on WEEI. When you were what was that you were doing back at the time? What were you, a something
I was
jam
a Mecco
person?
kid.
The
Mecco
what?
kid. A Mecco kid.
No, not when you're a Mecco kid. When you were working for EEI and you were going to these events, what were you?
Oh man, that was got my foot in the door. I was working. I was in a promotion.
Working promotions.
Yeah,
I was doing
yeah.
that when I first
I used to
got
do
back
events.
to. I first got back to Boston. I would say that I said that we're a great city, and I'd always end mine by saying one thing. And they always have, the guys say, "Okay, what do you have to say?" I said, "I'm gonna do what I normally do all the time. Until this city gives Bill Russell a statue, they have done themselves an injustice." And then Barack Obama picked up on it. One of the Celtics owners picked up on it, and the next thing you know, there was a statue. And I still think there should have been a statue in front of the Boston Garden.
Yeah.
I still believe that. I mean, I understand in City Hall, that's a great honor, but I still believe there should have been a statue that should have been in front of Boston Garden someplace.
I agree, 1000%. I don't know. Hopefully it changes, but yeah, even the placement is off. The whole thing, they just butchered the whole thing, man. They botched the whole thing, man. Just a botch job. But man, I digress.